Tuesday, January 20th, 2015. Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Here.
Bekavich.
Here.
Ritz.
Here.
Tillman.
Here.
Gale. Here. Guzekowski.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. Item 3 is the approval of minutes of January 6, 2015.
Bekavich will make a motion to approve the minutes of 1/6/15 as listed.
Ritzel, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Abstaining.
Moving to recognition, we have a, number 4 is a resolution number 11583-012015. It's a resolution of appreciation to James G. Tisdale, retiring police lieutenant. Jim's retiring from our outstanding police department. Was at the retirement official ceremony at police station, and then I attended his little bit of party afterwards. I've known Jim for 20-some years, outstanding police officer. One of the cool things about that ceremony at the PD was he was recognized by leaders in the honor guard from Washington, D.C., who work with the president. They thought very highly of Jim. They thought enough of him to come to Oak Creek for the ceremony and said that they learned a lot of things from him. Jim always took a leadership role in our honor guard. Just an outstanding employee. He will be missed. He's still a young guy. He's in his 50s, so he'll have a nice retirement. But he did a lot. He was actually the first officer to use have a canine, official canine. I think it was Putz, yeah. An outstanding dog, and he kind of developed that program, so he did a lot of great things for the city. I won't read his official proclamation. I'll certainly share that with Jim personally, but he's a shining example of the kind of police department we have and the great employees we have in the city of Oak Creek. So I'm honored to have known him for all these years, and I wish him good luck in his retirement. So we need a motion on number 4.
Kirkowski will make a motion to consider resolution number 11583-012015, resolution of appreciation to James G. Tisdale, retiring police lieutenant. Bekavich will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Ritz.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Item 5 is a recognition resolution, number 11584-012015. It's a resolution of commendation to Dave Lane, retiring Streets, Parks, and Forestry Supervisor. I'm going to have the city clerk, Catherine, read that. Another example, tremendous career in our Streets Department. Did an outstanding job both as an acting leader of that department. He knew the ins and outs of how the city worked and what needed to happen to make sure things ran smoothly. He stepped in when we needed him to, and just a great example again of how city employees should look at their position. So, Catherine.
Resolution number 11584-012015, resolution of commendation to David Lane. Whereas David Lane began his employment with the city of Oak Creek on April 15th, 1985, as a laborer for the Highway Department at a rate of $8.28 per hour. And whereas David Lane was reclassified to the position of equipment operator for the Oak Creek Highway Department on July 1st, 1992, appointed to the position of acting streets supervisor on January 2nd, 2002, and then appointed to streets supervisor on July 16th, 2002. Whereas David Lane was acting streets superintendent from April 8th, 2006 to September 6th, 2006, while the position was vacant. On March 1st, 2012, Dave's position was reclassified to Streets, Parks, and Forestry Supervisor, and from March 4th, 2013 until June 6th, 2014, Dave served as acting Streets, Parks, and Forestry Superintendent during a vacancy in that position. Whereas David Lane was appointed to the Celebration Commission from March 2005 until April 2012, assisting in city-sponsored events including Oak Creek's 4th of July Parade, the Christmas tree lighting ceremony, and the annual pig and chicken roast. Whereas David Lane performed the duties of Weed Commissioner in 2013 and 2014 and served on the city's safety committee beginning July 2001 until the time of his retirement. And whereas David Lane fulfilled the duties of his office with the greatest devotion, pride, integrity, and utmost loyalty. And whereas David Lane was a valuable employee during his years of dedicated service with the city of Oak Creek, always striving to enhance the quality of life within the Oak Creek community. Whereas after serving almost 30 years with the City of Oak Creek, David Lane is retiring effective January 9th, 2015 from his position as Streets, Parks, and Forestry Supervisor, freeing up time for more frequent and longer trips to his new retirement home in Arizona and allowing him more time for his favorite hobbies of sausage making, meat smoking, grandbaby chasing, and deer hunting. Whereas David Lane will be missed by his coworkers for his mechanical wisdom and his years of experience and knowledge of the Oak Creek area, as well as his great cooking skills, which include his infamous carrot cake. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and the common council of the city of Oak Creek that for and behalf of the citizens of Oak Creek, sincere gratitude and appreciation be extended to David Lane for his many years of dedicated service to the city of Oak Creek, and that best wishes for good health and happiness be extended to David Lane and his family in his retirement years. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread upon the minutes of this meeting, and the city clerk be and is hereby directed to transmit a suitable copy thereof to David Lane, passed and adopted this 20th day of January 2015.
And we need a motion on number 5.
Gavich will make a motion to adopt resolution number 11584012015, resolution of commendation to David Lane, retiring street, parks, and forestry supervisor.
Gale will second.
Roll call?
Alderman Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye. Item 6 is under public hearings. It's a request by Matthew Lyons, Azura LLC, to rezone the property at 8870 South Mayhew Drive, B4 Highway Business to RM1 Multifamily Residential with a conditional use for a community-based residential facility with the capacity for more than 15 persons in the 3rd District. Now I'll hand it off to Catherine.
Public hearing number 1 is to consider a request by Matthew Lyons, Azura LLC, to rezone the property at 8870 South Mayhew Drive, B4 Highway Business to RM1 Multifamily Residential with a conditional use for a community-based residential facility with a capacity for more than 15 persons. The applicant is Matthew Lyons, Azura LLC. The property owner is 8870 Mayhew Drive, LLC, care of Keystone Development. There follows the legal description. The date of the notice is December 15th, 2014.
Doug?
Thank you and good evening. I am Doug Seymour. I'm the Director of Community Development for the City of Oak Creek, and this is a public hearing and a request to rezone the property at 8870 South Mayhew Drive from B4 Highway Business to RM1 Multifamily Residential with a conditional use permit for a community-based residential facility with a capacity of more than 15 residents. The proposal calls for the development of a 2-phase, 60-unit or 66-bed memory care assisted living facility to serve the population with Alzheimer's and dementia. Phase 1 would consist of 40 units or 44 beds in a 28,000 square foot building. Phase 2, and we've got a kind of a phasing plan to show you on the screen, would consist of an additional 20 unit or 22 bed, 9,000 square foot building. The property itself is, well, it is zoned commercial at this point in time. It is shown as planned mixed use on the comprehensive plan. The designation as residential would be consistent with this plan. The Plan Commission in their deliberation of this particular conditional use request made several significant findings. First, they found that the requested increase in density for senior housing is appropriate. They found that since this CBRF is within 2,500 feet of an existing CBRF, they found that appropriate as well. There were some prior state statute, I believe, that gives the city some discretion regarding the placement of CBRFs within a certain linear feet of additional facilities. The city has the discretion to approve it within that, and the Plan Commission felt that was an appropriate request. They did also, as part of their review of the conditions and restrictions, allow for a reduction in the minimum number of parking stalls. Remember, the rezoning would be to a base zoning of RM1 multifamily, which has specific requirements per unit. I think it's 2 spaces per unit. Given the population of this specific facility would be for a population which would not have that same parking demand, the Plan Commission felt it would be appropriate to make a reduction for a total of 1 space for every 3 residents, or 22 stalls, plus 18 spaces for the peak shift staff, which would be an additional 18 stalls. And those requirements, or those additional requirements placed in the conditions and restrictions, are based on our own zoning code requirements for nursing home facilities. They also made a determination that age restrictions are not required given the targeted population for this facility for Alzheimer's and dementia typically would be found in populations which are older in nature, and therefore the Plan Commission felt that no age restriction would be required on this. This is a public hearing, and I would request that anyone has any questions or comments regarding the proposed rezoning of the property at 8870 South Mayhew Drive from B4 Highway Business to RM1 Multifamily Residential with a conditional use permit for a community-based residential facility with a capacity of more than 15 residents. Please approach the microphone, give your name and address, and proceed to address your questions or comments to the Common Council. This public hearing is now open.
I'll make 3 calls. First call for public comment on item number 6. Name and address for the record.
My name is Matthew Lyons. I'm the applicant on this this item. I live in Denver, Colorado. The address is 3190 South Wadsworth Boulevard.
So you know what it feels like to lose football game.
We all do. We all do recently here. I actually heard a funny story from one of our homes.
There's no funny stories.
Just this morning.
Remember, they haven't voted yet.
I know. It's a good story. One of our residents was wearing a green shirt, and he had a white shirt underneath it, and or over top of it, and you kind of see the letters through, and it was a Green Bay Packers shirt, and our caregiver was asking him, why he's wearing the 2 shirts, and he said, well, I love my Packers, but I'm really angry with them right now, so I'm wearing the white shirt.
I share his anger.
But I just wanted to make a few additional comments regarding our project and a little bit of background about Azura. Azura was founded in 2008 with a mission to transform the culture of care. We do that through extensive training and a high level of actual caregivers per resident compared to industry standards, and really feel that improving the one-on-one care, in addition to the kind of technology that's out there, is the best way to care for folks with Alzheimer's. And by training people specifically as to what the disease is, are able to create a more compassionate caregiver that are able to better handle the needs of those with Alzheimer's and dementia without the need for increased medications and that sort of thing. So that's really where Azura comes from. We were founded in 2008. We now have a portfolio of 12 memory care assisted living communities throughout the state of Wisconsin. They are all located in the state of Wisconsin, and our entire operational team is here. We have 231 residents throughout our portfolio. The average age of that resident is 81. Which goes to the comment about the lack of age restriction. I think the Plan Commission specifically allowed that because there is an increasing amount of dementia that's related to things other than Alzheimer's that are earlier onset, and we want to have the ability to care for those residents in your community, and that was the reason for that waiver on the age restriction. We have done a market study that shows that there is a significant actual need right now for Alzheimer's and dementia care within your community, and that population is expected to grow by as much as 15% over the next 5 years. So, we feel that it'd be a benefit to the community to have our services, and obviously as a business, are asking for approval to build our building here so that we can serve those folks. As far as economic development goes, we would anticipate the addition of 75 jobs to the city through our facility. It is a 24-hour staffed facility, so it'd have care around the clock.
Full-time jobs?
I'm sorry?
Full-time?
I don't know. I don't have the full-time equivalent on that, but it would be 75 actual jobs. It's pretty close. The majority of them would be full-time. And so the way that we propose this would work out would be the 44 beds. The phase 1 building would be constructed initially. That would bring in about 50 jobs with the first phase. And then in the conditions and restrictions, we'd be required to construct phase 2 within 36 months of this approval. And then that additional Phase 2 would bring in the additional 22 beds and approximately 25 jobs. In addition to that, as far as impact to the city goes, there's some pretty substantial impact fees that would benefit the city as part of this development, as well as the increased property taxes that would come through to the city. So
Is that some sort of courtyard between the two buildings?
yes, that's one thing that Azura has prided itself on, and especially with our newer developments, is creating very extensive kind of park-like atmosphere for our residents. It will be, access controlled courtyard. Generally I'll have a putting green or bocce ball or something along those lines, and some extensive walking paths. And you can see kind of the circular sidewalks and that sort of thing are specifically geared towards folks with dementia. There's a kind of a circular flow, and people tend to wander, and having the ability to kind of circulate within there is supposed to be helpful and therapeutic for the residents. So, let's see. Oh, yeah, so that, as far as the density goes, the requested density is 23 units per acre, compared to the 27 units per acre that was allowable per the zoning code for housing for the elderly. And our parking at the 42 stalls is in line with the nursing home ordinance. And then I just wanted to note as well that when we construct Phase 1, the entire proposed parking would be constructed as well, so the full 42 units would be constructed up front. So if for whatever reason that second phase did not get constructed, we would have an overage of parking compared to that requirement.
So that's the lot that butts up against the medical facility on the north side, and then
No, there's a...
is there an extra lot in between those?
the lot to the south is the office condo, and there's
Right.
a daycare facility in there right now. And so our parking lot is actually, if you could go back to the other one. So on the right-hand side would be the south part of our building, and so that would actually be adjacent to the building that has the daycare. And then we're actually in the process, we have a drafted cross-access and parking agreement that we're anticipating with the seller that would essentially mirror the parking on this left-hand side and be shared with that building.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's all of my comments.
You also have the ability to comment during the discussion of item 7, so
Okay.
we can bring you back if we need you.
Great. Thank you.
Second call for public comment on item number 6. And third and final call for public comments. At this time, I'll close the public hearing and move to the actual ordinance discussion. Consideration of ordinance number 2747, approving the rezoning of a portion of the property at 8870 South Mayhew Drive to become 8760 South Mayhew Drive from B4 Highway Business to RM1 Multifamily Residential with a conditional use for a community-based residential facility with the capacity of more than 15 residents in the 3rd District. Open it up to any questions or comments from the council. Alderman Kirkowski.
I have a couple questions for Mr. Lyons, so we might want to come back. So this is my first experience into the building phase of such a facility. So if you could kind of walk me through some of the floor plans on the inside, like kitchen and dining facilities. I mean, with regards to the type of residents you're going to have, rooms. I mean, how big are the rooms? What are the amenities for the rooms? And I'm assuming that the entire property will, or at least the back, will probably be fenced in or something for. And I don't need to hear about security because I'm sure the doors are alarmed and stuff like that, and there's plans in place. And then touch on emergency procedures with regards to, evacuation plans and stuff like that.
What's that now?
Give us a PowerPoint for the plan commission.
Actually, I don't believe we don't have official floor plans yet for this building. It's pretty similar to our other buildings, so I could kind of walk you through I don't think we don't have the actual floor plan yet, which that'll have to go back through the plan commission for our actual building approvals and that sort of thing. So
For the Alderman, just describe what the interior of the building will look like.
right, yeah, absolutely. So if we can just go
That'll
to
work.
the outline of the building. So essentially what this will be is you can see there's kind of two wings, and so the L shapes will have all of the units, and each one of those wings will have its own contained, it'll look like a residential kitchen. It'll have a living room, a TV room, and an activity room. And all of those areas will be individually for a set of 22 residents. And so it'll be essentially in the corner of each of those wings with the 11 units on either side. There will be a commercial kitchen located in the building, and so all of the actual cooking and dishes and all of that sort of thing will be done in that kitchen. And then will be bus carted to the neighborhood's residential kitchens where they'll have serving stations and that sort of thing. So, it keeps the residents safe from the actual, stoves and commercial equipment and that sort of thing. But they still have the ability to do baking, and there will be an oven and that sort of thing. So a lot of the residential types of things that grandma or grandpa or mom or dad would do at home, they'll still have the ability to do in those kitchens, which is, very important in increasing independence as folks progress through the disease and that sort of thing. The units, I don't have the specific square footage off the top of my head, but they're good sized units, enough for bed, built-in wardrobe, nightstand, little sitting area, and then they will have full bathrooms. The bathrooms will have a kind of a safety water shutoff valve for when folks progress in the disease to the point where they would need assistance with showering and that sort of thing. So it kind of prevent them from getting into risky situations and that sort of thing. But everything that we do is obviously geared towards this population and towards safety. The center of the building, kind of between the two wings, is really a community area, both for the residents in the building to come into the community areas and do larger group activities, church services, those types of things, as well as an actual community space. One of the things that we like to do is really educate the local population about Alzheimer's, and there are support groups that we would invite to take place in this community space for folks that have family members that are dealing with Alzheimer's or caring for folks with Alzheimer's and would like advice and help and that sort of thing. And so there'd be kind of a grand entryway and a fireplace, a double-sided fireplace kind of would be the kind of grand item that you would see when you walk in. And then the hallways would go around the fireplace, and that serves two purposes. One, it gives kind of a grand, nice-looking entry, and two, it will block the view of the exit for our residents. And so in Alzheimer's, it's pretty typical to see for exit-seeking behaviors. And so when the doors aren't readily in sight, it kind of has a tendency to prevent that behavior. And then the kind of rear half of the area would include a memory cafe, which would have a bistro kind of coffee bar, and library resource center area, which would be utilized by the community for those kind of group resource meetings and that sort of thing, as well as a larger space where the activities and excuse me, the group activities and church services and that sort of thing would take place. As far as the whole courtyard goes, it would be fully enclosed with a residential style aluminum fencing. So it's, the kind of black fencing that you would see around that's, 4 to 6 inch gaps, be 6 foot tall, but it's not like super privacy fencing like you see at some of the facilities, but the gates would be access controlled as all of our exit doors would be. As far as fire safety and that sort of thing, we do have very specific plans for that. It's very highly regulated by the Department of Health Services through the state of Wisconsin, and so everything is in compliance with that. I don't have a specific recollection for that.
And what does the staff per shift, how many people will you have working per shift there? If the place is full, how many staffers are there?
Yeah, so, I mean, we would have, generally, it's about, wow, it's, it's about one staff member per 5 to 6 residents, depending on, obviously the night shift would be staffed less and the day shift would be staffed heavier at that kind of 1 to 6. I think it's more like 1 to 8 at night or somewhere in that neighborhood. But it's, the general staffing for either nursing home or Alzheimer's assisted living can be, 1 to 8 or 1 to 10. Staffing ratios is not uncommon, and so at 1 to 5, we're actually pretty heavily staffed compared to kind of industry standards.
Thank you.
Alderman Bekavich.
I guess more of a comment. I just kind of wanted to share with the council and everybody out there. We went over this pretty extensively at planning. After much debate, Doug kind of covered it, but we got into the age restrictions and we beat that all around, and we came to the conclusion that it's a rather nice facility. It seems to provide excellent care to its residents. We would not want to restrict that to somebody that had a loved one that just didn't make the age requirements. So we felt if there was an accident or injury and they were part of this community and they wanted them close by, we felt that the age restriction wasn't appropriate. As far as the parking went, it kind of went with the population of who's going to be there. There's not going to be a lot of drivers. Hopefully there'll be more visitors for these people than I don't suspect many drive. But that was the reasoning behind that. We felt it was a rather well laid out plan. It seemed like a very nice facility that would actually fit in well with the surrounding area, given apartments on Centennial, the way they seem to present their business. It seemed to really fit our community, and unfortunately with our population aging, there is demand for this. And, I believe it was a unanimous vote at planning on this. And again, they're doing it in phases. It seems well thought out, and they really seem to put their residents' interests first when we seen the PowerPoint, the full PowerPoint. So that's it.
I also want to commend the applicant for spending a lot of hours working with our staff to develop a plan that made sense. Obviously, it's something we need to pay attention to. One of the fastest growing segments of the care of the population that needs care, that kind of care. So I commend you on that. Any other questions or comments on item number 7? Alderman Gale.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, I appreciate you being here. Two questions. I know you had mentioned about you take pride in your competency of your staff. You have a feel for what kind of wages you typically are paying for your folks?
It's competitive with the industry. I mean, it varies from, you'll have, professional level executive director down to kind of CNA caregiver level. So it's really kind of across the board. I don't have specific wage information off the top of my head.
Yeah, some parts of the industry are notorious for really reasonably unqualified staff, so I'm not sure what kind of measures you take to prevent that,
Yeah, I know that our controller does annual reviews against other nursing homes, assisted livings, kind of the gamut of the industry that we'd be competing for labor force, and we generally stack up based on those audits at the top of the list, both wage and benefits.
Okay, and with the fire chief in the room, I thought I'd just ask you about how do you deal with the facility like this is going to have increasing demands on our paramedic rescue services. So I'm wondering what kind of relationship or what you do to account for those extra demands on our fire services.
Are you asking the chief that?
Matt, chief,
We'll both answer here. Typically on us, it's about 1 call per bed per year on an average. Talked to a citizen today, and we looked at, there's one up on Crane Drive, 6606, in operation since about 1998. They've had about 70 runs up there, so about 5 runs a year out of that facility there. And I think that's about an 8-bed unit. So there's an impact. Right now, I used to actually teach CBRF classes years ago, and the old adage was that you're 9 times more likely to have a fire in one of these places than a normal residential home. What's good about Oak Creek is that all of these places that have gone up recently all have sprinkler systems. State code actually allows you to put up to 8 without having a sprinkler system, but our local code says they all have to. So any of these that you have coming across in the future are sprinkled. The last one was the one on Sicily Drive in Steve's district.
No concerns on your part?
No, it's treating life just like anybody else we treat.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom. Matt, it sounds, from my perspective, sounds like a welcome addition to the city. Obviously, as Danny said, we're a growing population of elderly folks are going to need it, so happy to have you.
Yeah, appreciate it. And in regards to the number of calls, that was something that we discussed in the Plan Commission as well, and actually like the proximity to the fire department. The new fire station is just right across the street, so.
Block away.
Are there other sidewalks out there?
Yeah.
I mean, common sidewalks, not just,
Yes.
okay.
Mr. Degner,
Mr. Chairman,
can you pull that microphone down for me, please? Thank you.
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. When a person is admitted to the hospital, they are very careful to get them out and walking. How do these people get any exercise? Or is this just a somnambulant residence? Where is the exercise place? Do they require anything, or do we keep them sedated? Just a number of questions I've got off the top of my head.
Matt, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, based on our experience, obviously a full gym type of atmosphere is not something that would be appropriate for the types of residents that we have. We do have full-time quality of life, is what we call it, manager that is responsible for activities. They do exercise groups. A lot of it is, would seem a little bit light for you and I, who are a little bit more active, but it's actually, again, very much based on Alzheimer's research and that sort of thing. And again, the walking paths outside and the way that our internal layout is designed allows for walking throughout both the facility and the outdoor spaces. And it's actually very much on the beneficial side compared to other Alzheimer's type facilities.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Motion on 7.
Ritz will make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2747, approving the rezoning of a portion of the property at 8870 South Mayhew Drive to become 8760 South Mayhew Drive, from B4 Highway Business to RM1 Multifamily Residential, with a conditional use for a community-based residential facility with a capacity of more than 15 residents.
Kavich will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Tolman.
Aye.
Item 8 is a public hearing on a rezone and conditional use request by the Oak Creek Water and Sewer Utility to rezone the properties at 9175 and 9235 South Fifth Avenue and 3975 East American Avenue from B2 Community Business to I1 Institutional with a conditional use for water treatment facility, water storage, and high service distribution pump facilities in the 4th District. Catherine, if you could read the public hearing notice.
Public hearing number 2 is to consider a request by the Oak Creek Water and Sewer Utility to rezone the properties of 9175, 9235 South Fifth Avenue, and 3975 East American Avenue from B2 Community Business to I1 Institutional, with a conditional use for water treatment facility, water storage, and high-service distribution pump facilities. The applicant is Oak Creek Water and Sewer Utility. New property owner is City of Oak Creek. Therefore follows the legal description. The date of the notice is December 17th, 2014.
Doug?
Once again, thank you, and this is a public hearing and a request to rezone portions of the properties, at 9175 South Fifth Avenue, 9235 South Fifth Avenue, 3975 East American Avenue, from B2 Community Business to I1 Institutional with a conditional use permit for storage and high-service distribution pump facilities. Rather than me giving the introduction, if you will, I'd ask either, I think Ron or Mike has prepared a brief presentation that will give you some background upon the request and provide a basis for members of the audience to proceed with any questions or comments for the public hearing, as well as the common council. So
Sure,
with your
go ahead.
permission, Ron?
Thank you, Doug. Thanks for having me, council. Some of you know what's going on here, and some of you have not been informed, so I'll start from the beginning. 1997, if we rewind to that time frame, we had, if you can flip to the next one, Doug, that'd be great. If you see that that blue rectangle right in the middle of our screen there, just to the west of that, towards the railroad tracks, is our existing chlorine contact tank. Back in 1997, up until that point, it was just a rectangular storage facility. At that point, it was changed into a chlorine contact tank, baffled for a serpentine effect to get chlorine dispersion through the water as it made its way through the treatment process and into the distribution system. As time went on, after 97, DNR codes changed. As you know, things change all the time. And currently that tank, as it sits right now, is underground. You can't see it. And some of these things, some deficiencies with code came up with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. In an attempt to address that, we did agree that by 2018, we would have those deficiencies fixed with our chlorine contact tank. That's why we're doing this project. This project essentially will consist of a new intermediate pump facility, ultraviolet disinfection, and 2.5 million gallon storage tank and new high service pumping facilities. The reason why we're requesting the rezone is the natural expansion of this plant is to the north, and it's as you can see, the circular tank and the high service pump facility to the east of it. That would be the best location for that. So that's basically the background of the project. I'm willing to answer any questions that you might have, but really this is a continuation of our our policy of really going above and beyond and providing great water quality, not only here, but one of the best in the nation.
Okay, go ahead, Doug.
Before we get to the council's questions, recognize that this is a public hearing. Anybody that does have any questions or comments regarding the proposed rezoning and conditional use, I'm sorry, just rezoning in this case. Oh, I'm sorry, it is conditional use. Please, again, approach the microphone, give your name and address, and proceed to address your questions and comments to the common council.
3 calls for public comment on item number 7. First call. Item 8, rather. Name and address for the record.
Rosemary Hanson, 3920 East Ryan Road. I want to know, that old tank, it's buried underneath that ground?
Yes. I'll show you. If I can step up here. This tank right here, this is our existing chlorine contact tank. It's completely underground.
Okay, and it's going to go into that round one?
No, what'll happen is
We need him on mic.
Tell you what, let's have her ask the question, and you can speak on the mic.
okay, so there's some pipes going in from our filter gallery that enter the chlorine contact tank as it sits right now. These pipes are going to be cut off, okay? So there's no more water going into this tank. It's going to be sit there in place until some other need for that land occurs. These pipes will be rerouted down and into the intermediate pump station. They will go through a process. It would be pumped through an ultraviolet light treatment process, through some piping, and into our storage tank, and from there to the high service and into the distribution system to the south and north.
Do you have a question?
I'm confused, because right now, it's underground in that tank. And you're going to cut off those pipes, but then when you get new chlorine, won't it go into the round tank?
No, it will eventually get into the round tank, but initially, there'll be 2 pipes that go in. We're going to cut these. The new pipe will come in around here. There'll be another pipe that comes in here into a clear well below the intermediate pump station. This is the intermediate pump station. That will then be pumped through a UV facility right here, and then be piped to the new storage.
All right. So that's not just chlorine tank, it's chlorine and water, it's where you're actually treating it, right?
Yes, this will be the, well, we do add chlorine at several locations throughout the process, but once it gets into, we'll have added chlorine before this, but it'll go through an additional process of UV disinfection, come down into that pipe, go into a circular storage tank, which will also have baffles in it, which will also allow that serpentine effect of the water, so it'll allow our CT or chlorine disinfection time, and then go into the high service pump and then be distributed throughout the.
Is there a size difference between the two per gallon?
Aside, well, this is 2.5 million. Mike, do you happen to know how much our 1.2 million is our existing tank?
Double in size.
Why is it doubling?
Additional flexibility. Right now, we have no storage at the facility. There are industry standards, if you will, that you should have some storage at your facility. While we do provide good water quality, this will give us some additional flexibility as well.
If the agreement should materialize with Waukesha, will we have to make this larger, or will this be large enough now at double the size?
Right now, we're designing it for ultimate build-out, so we will be able to easily expand into a situation if we need to serve Waukesha.
You'll have to build more then.
Well, yeah, I mean, there'll be an expansion, but we're setting it up so that it's an easy expansion.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for your comments. Second call for public comment on item number 8. Third and final call, public comment, item number 8, before we move it to 9. I'll close the public hearing and move to item number 9, which is a consideration of the ordinance, number 2748, approving the rezoning of the properties at 9175 South 5th Avenue, 9235 South 5th, 3975 East American from B2 Community Business to I1 Institutional with a conditional use for water storage and high-service distribution pump facilities in the 4th District. Open up to any questions or comments from the council. Alderman Toman.
Are those 3 parcels, Doug, are those owned by the city or the utility, or how does that work?
As I understand it, the city would be the actual owner of the property.
They own it now, and there's no transfer with, it stays?
No, there's not.
Okay, all right. That's my only question. Thank you.
Alderman Gale.
Just a tremendous project for the city on behalf of the water utility. So really, especially adding the secondary treatment capacity in the ultraviolet is a tremendous addition to the security of our water system, and it will be a great addition to our whole system as in its entirety to current customers and future customers as well.
Alderman Makevich.
I just wanted to add that during planning, we did have a resident that came in, lived close to the tank, and utilities working with them to provide adequate screening and work with that resident. So we really appreciate it.
I got a thumbs up from the residents, so that's good.
Absolutely. That's the, I believe it's 3953 there. So we are working with them, especially regarding their view to the east and their view to the south, where there was some concerns, and we are working with them on that.
So again, it's a public service upgrade, but they worked very well with the neighbors, and both parties really cooperated well on this when they came in at planning. There were no issues.
Alderman Ritz.
Is that to infer there's not ultraviolet screening now?
No, there's no ultraviolet light disinfection at this point.
Wow.
So part of this project was to evaluate some of those additional means, which a lot of the folks on the western shore of Lake Michigan have now. We didn't, but we took a look at everything from membranes to ozone to UV. We decided to go with UV after an extensive alternative study.
Great.
So,
Okay.
Steve, just a
Go ahead.
housekeeping for Catherine. Catherine, on the actual ordinance at page, the Aldermanic District is listed as a 3rd district, so it should be 4.
It's listed. What? Where is it?
I got a 4 here.
I got a 4.
On the
The actual document, it says 3rd, I guess.
Oh, it does?
Read it as 4th. Any other questions? Motion on 9.
Tobin will make a motion to approve ordinance number 2748, approving the rezoning of the properties 9175 South 5th Avenue, 9235 South 5th Avenue, and 3975 East American Avenue from B2 Community Business to I1 Institutional with a conditional use for water storage and high service distribution pump facilities.
Gail will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Holman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. What's the timeline?
Right now, we're looking at a bid and award in the October timeframe, and some of it's based, the timing is based on a safe drinking water loan, so we're probably closing on that towards the end of the year, and hopefully starting early 16.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, moving to new business. Item number 10 is a consideration of resolution number 11588-012015. It's a partnership for prosperity and agenda for a competitive 21st century Wisconsin. Jerry, speak to that.
What the council has in front of you is a resolution that's been crafted by a group from the Wisconsin League of Wisconsin Municipalities. It's intended to create a partnership with the state, recognizing that job creation is a priority. Job creation and economic development is a priority in the state. And most of the state's job creation and economic development takes place in incorporated cities and so forth. So this resolution is encouraging the state to work closely with its municipalities in pursuing those goals and recognizing that perhaps the economy has changed from a farm economy to manufacturing and technology, and that perhaps some of the distribution of state revenues needs to be updated and reflected. There's no specific proposals as part of the resolution, but there are some more specific ideas that are incorporated in the Partnership for Prosperity that's included in the council's packets. We think that this is very much needed, that the state does have to recognize that it needs to support economic development activity in the localities, and I think this is a good start. I think it's also an indication that the league's going in a little bit different and more aggressive discussions with the state than they have historically. The mayor and council president have met with some of our staff as well as league executive director and some of their staff in talking about some of these things and creating a process where our voices can really be heard by the legislators. I think one of the things we heard from them, extremely important. The staff can provide some detail, can provide some input, but it's really important to hear from the elected officials. That's what really counts at the state level. So I think this is a good step forward. It's in partnership with communities from throughout the state, and I think is a good step forward. I'm sure the mayor and Ken may have some comments as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've met with Jerry a bunch of times. It's really taking, typically the way it worked is the state just dictated what happened on the local level. And basically it's saying to the leaders on the local level, let's get involved with that discussion before the state legislature takes action. So this is really saying to the league, help us work with the governor, with the Senate and the Assembly to make decisions that help communities and not at the benefit of strictly rural areas, which is traditionally what's been going on. So that's what I take away from it. It's better communication between local municipalities and the state.
Yeah, and Mayor, I just echo those comments. And given the fact that many of the legislators at the state level are former local municipal officials themselves, the fact that we can proactively go out there and reach out and touch them with some of our thought processes in terms of what's going to help municipalities continue to provide the services that our citizens demand, and the fact that the league is working, bringing all these cities and officials together, basically, rather than having a scattershot approach to doing this is, power's in the numbers, and I think it's a great effort and a good starting point. So the more that we can get after this and get in front of the folks, especially as the legislative agenda has just started for this particular session, the better off we'll all be. So,
any other questions or comments?
I did have one comment, Steve. Sorry,
sure.
On the Jerry, and I've told you this, and Steve, you probably heard this before, and I am significantly in favor of nearly the entire Partnership for Prosperity agenda. I do caution with the fact that we need to be in front of the Assembly and the Senate on the Regional Transportation Authority language. and make certain, obviously, as other communities see the same effect, that these kind of entities can extract sales tax money from communities, and you do not see it coming back unless you're careful to craft language that makes certain that happens. So,
I think the challenge always is in one of these, how do you craft a position document that creates enough consensus for buy-in? Each community is going to be nuanced as legislation comes in terms of, its impact on them particularly. And I agree with Ken, we need to make sure that legislation that we have is providing direct benefits to us as opposed to taking resources here and sending them elsewhere. So we understand that.
Anything else? Motion?
Gail, move to approve resolution number 11588-012015, Partnership for Prosperity and Agenda for Competitive 21st Century Wisconsin.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call?
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Item 11 is a consideration of resolution number 11585-12015, a resolution regarding the former DuPont and Epic properties in the 4th District, and I'll hand it off to the city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As everyone knows, the city became the owner of about 100 acres on the lakefront back in December. The property was given to the city by DuPont and Epic. There's number of environmental restrictions that exist on the property. The property is slated for a construction activity beginning in spring. Part of the property is going to become a public park. We received an email from a citizen, namely Rosemary Anderson, who's here in the audience tonight, questioning whether or not the public would have access to all of these, to the two properties immediately. I think it's a legitimate question. The staff undertook an analysis of that question and took it before the Plan Commission with a recommendation that the public not be allowed access for right now until construction of the public park is completed. A couple of reasons for that. There's really no hard surfaces or other visible means of access to the property. There's a question of emergency vehicles getting access if somebody came onto the property for whatever purpose. The property is going to be a construction zone in a few short months. So why create the expectation of access in the short term if the construction activity is going to go on and there's construction equipment down there? Really not safe for the public to be there. There's been a history of vandalism on the lakefront. Everybody knows about the construction equipment that was driven off the bluff at the Peter Cooper property. Been a lot of vandalism at the former High Night property. This council has supported all of the activities with the lakefront, or on the lakefront, both financially and with resolutions of support, all of which are designed to restore public access to these properties that's been denied for 100 years, because it's been industrial uses back in a day when industrial uses were not regulated. The goal of the council, I know, is to open up this property for public access. That's what everybody wants to see. The question is the timing of that, and the recommendation of the staff and of the Plan Commission that is that for right now, public access should not be allowed. And the city has the right to make that determination. But as soon as the property is ready, when the roads are in, when the hard surfaces are in, when the park facilities are in, absolutely, open up to the public, subject to reasonable restrictions. That's what this process, this 6-year process, has been all about. So this resolution would basically say no access until that construction project is completed.
Okay, questions?
Mike told me that the bids are going out for Lake Vista Road,
Mike Simmons?
right? And are we absolutely going to do construction? Are there any reasons why construction wouldn't occur?
No. Now, we've got EPA approval for, there was an issue that we resolved prior to closing. There's a small, environmental area that we have to cross. There's a small culvert there, Mike. We got EPA approval for the road crossing. We've got DNR approval. All the approvals are in place. We own the property. There's no impediment to construction taking place.
So construction's gonna start in like April?
We would expect mid-March probably to be underway, yes.
And when will the road be done?
That would take the bulk of the summer, so probably late August.
And so when do you anticipate you're gonna open it up to the public?
The other project that's going to be going on concurrently with the road project that's being bid out, through the engineering department is the park project, and that's under design right now. I can't speak to the construction schedule because they really just got underway with design, but that will be going on, and my estimation from what I've seen, that won't be done by August. That will continue into the fall.
So we won't open it until the park is completed?
I don't know if it, we haven't carried the discussion that far. And it's a legitimate question. There'll be an ongoing conversation about that. As soon as it's appropriate, I'm sure that the Parks Department, the Parks Committee, City Administrator, City Engineer, Director of Community Development, everybody that's involved in the process will be looking at this and try to open this up as soon as it makes sense to do so.
All right. There are some things, some misconceptions, I think, that have been presented to the council. Bender Park, 400 acres, is right next door. They have very little paved, very little paths. People walk on deer trails, animal trails, anywhere that they can. There's a lot of brush and trees, where this property is relatively bare. We have four-wheel, so I don't think that emergency vehicles getting on if someone would get hurt would be a problem. When you open it up, are you going to open up all of the property or only the park?
Again, I don't think a decision has been made on that.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Any other questions? Motion on 11.
I want to make a motion to adopt resolution number 11585, a resolution regarding the former DuPont and Epic properties.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Tolman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Item 12 is a consideration of resolution number 11590-012015, a resolution regarding the City of Oak Creek social media user responsibilities policy. Jerry?
So what the council has in front of them is part of a new wave in terms of communication with the public. It's a social media policy as respects the public on our Facebook and other social media techniques. I suspect that this is not going to be our final policy, that this is going to evolve over time. We're going to have some internal staff policies as part of this, but it's a way to get started on this. In talking with the mayor and Leslie Flynn, who does a lot of this work, we're one of the leading communities in the area in terms of our outreach to the public. We have very good following on our Twitter and Facebook and web pages, and this is to create the parameters for the social media as respects the public. We've done some research in terms of what other states are doing, what other users are providing. There's been a really good report out of California that's talked about their social media policy and some of the legal issues that are related to it. Melissa Carls has spent a lot of time with Leslie. I think there's been input from the city clerk as well. And I suspect this policy will probably evolve over time. We need something to get started. We shouldn't fret about getting everything perfect. And if it needs to adjust, we'll adjust it over time. I would suspect that an issue for the council is whether you want any of those changes in this policy to come back in front of you. The way it's written, is the changes can be through the city administrator. I'm not so sure that early on that may be the best thing to do. You need to talk about that. I'm not the, as you know, I'm not the social media guy and the technology person. And it could be very much a debated issue in terms of how we do this. And I suspect if I do that, we may have a resident who doesn't like that, who wants to come in front of the council and look at that. So I'd ask you to think about that a little bit. But I think this is a right step for us. We're a leader in this area. We continue to look for ways to outreach the community. Matter of fact, I think we're going to be talking about some communication policies and some additional outreach efforts. We don't think we're reaching folks the way we need to. We think that there's probably a print media gap out there and some other things. And this is part of our effort to try to resolve that. We are also shifting some of our staff in a related issue from GIS support to communications, because we believe this is an important area to be able to communicate. We have both internal communication challenges that we have in our own operations, as well as to the community at large, and we're trying to address those. This policy, I think, goes a long way in doing that. Our social media use right now is at times off the chart. I think you've said 17,000, 27,000.
Just put into context, we are in the top 5 social media users in the state. I think we were third. We trail Milwaukee and Madison. We're bigger than Green Bay, bigger than Racine, bigger than Wausau, almost cities that are twice as the size of us. Some of the views that we've seen on some of the posts we've made, unrelated to what happened in August of 2012, because those were off the charts, but things we've done since retirement of Lieutenant Brian Murphy, things like that have had upwards of 17,000 to 20,000 people look at them. The site's well done. It does what we want it to do. I think it communicates what the city's up to, projects we're working on, down to what departments are doing. We put a post up today on, or there'll be a post up this week on the transition to advanced for our recycling and waste. So those are the kind of services that our social media sites provide. I think we do a good job. We'll open it up for any questions or comment. Alderman Krukowski.
I just want to comment, and I think everybody else would agree that Jerry's job and the city administrator's job is busy enough. He doesn't need to be tasked with making amendments to a social media policy, so I think that could be delegated to somebody else, even the person who runs the site. And if we have to approve those, I think it'd be easier than to have Jerry do that. He's got better things to do.
Maybe we just have the administrator of the site with legal review.
Well, we drafted the resolution this way because with the idea that the input's going to come from, what's the title? Social media coordinator?
I don't know what the title is.
Okay. There'd be input from the social media coordinator, but he's the chief operating officer here, that somebody needs to make that decision, and that would not be because Jerry's got particular expertise in this area, but it would be based upon input from the people that do.
Yeah.
And it would consult with our office in terms of legalities. Having said that, if you prefer that it comes back to the council, that's fine. Just make a revision of the ordinance to that effect.
I guess the point that I would make, and I think Larry's communicated that properly, is if we make these changes and they're out there and you hear about it from the public and we've made them, we need to make sure we're communicating that with you and we have the opportunity for feedback. So I suppose if we do something that the public really doesn't like, we can come back and change it. So
whatever
whatever you really want to do. Again, we're in a kind of a new area here, and it's one that we get a lot of communication from folks in terms of what we should or shouldn't do or how we deal with it. So we're going to have to be working through that until we find our pace over time.
The guidelines that are here, and if you look at the policy, it's really 1 through 10. I mean, Melissa did a lot of work on these, but these are carved from larger, municipalities that use this, and they're pretty standard.
They're reasonable.
And they're reasonable, but it's not to say that this isn't going to be tweaked in the future. But I think it's as good a starting point is we could ask for, there needs to be a policy in place. So there's some guidelines so that Leslie understands what the rules are, and so the public does.
Well, I guess then I would be happy that the amendments or modifications be approved by the city administrator, because I'm sure if somebody who doesn't have the knowledge of this is probably going to take the recommendation of somebody who does.
That was the thought.
So if that's the thought, then that would be fine.
Let me go to Alderman Ritz, and then we'll go to the citizen. Alderman Ritz.
Just a quick comment. I want to commend the staff and Mayor Scafidi, because I know you really led this charge. As a business person, I referred our staff to the city of Oak Creek to look at their social media skill sets. So that's, I think, about as big a compliment as you can have.
Appreciate that. Yes. Can you drop the mic a little bit? Thank you.
Rosemary
Too much.
Hanson, 3920 East Ryan
Actually,
Road.
up. You gotta bring it up
Too
a little
much.
bit. Too much. There you go. Perfect.
Were you able to give them copy?
I have a response to your open records request. I have it if you'd like it, or it can be read into record if you choose.
No, I wanted, what do you have, Catherine? The two posts that were removed,
That were hid, correct?
could I see them?
Certainly.
I had some problems on the Facebook site with Leslie removing things that I had posted. And if I don't have the whole thing here, it's kind of hard to explain. But she sent me an email and told me that she was going to remove one of my posts, but I had made a comment to a negative comment from the person that made the comment before mine. And he was calling me a Debbie Downer and things like this, and Leslie didn't nail him. And when I came back at him, I said that don't attack me, the writer, attack the content of what I write, which is what you should do on a social media site. We have a social media site. If you are going to limit comments from the public to censor what we're saying.
Nobody's censoring what you're saying. What we're going to do is have a social media policy that clearly spells out what you can and can't do.
Well,
nothing's
some of
ever
the
been
things that
deleted.
you have on here,
Let me
though.
just finish. Nothing has ever been deleted from the site since 2012.
Until this?
2 items were removed, or hidden rather. They're still there. You can still view them. They're not shared with future users of Facebook. That's the distinction.
Well, why?
Because they were what I would determine as violating this policy.
But you didn't have this policy.
This policy was actually, a version of this policy was actually posted months ago on the site, and it was strictly pretty much followed what Facebook had already done as a general guideline.
All right.
I'm not going to speak to a specific issue because I don't really know what you're talking about, but that person felt that you had pushed the envelope for your discussion, whatever it was, and they hid it from any future users of Facebook.
So how are we going to do this? Are we going to hire someone that's going to monitor the site?
We have, I'm pretty sure we've selected somebody out of our staff that's going to monitor what's done on the site. Keep in mind, and I think it spells it out in the policy, this is not a 24-hour-a-day operation, so we don't have the ability, we're not going to hire someone 24 hours a day to look at what you or anyone else in this room or out in the general public post. The reason we have guidelines is so that people have a reasonable expectation of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. You can always, anything that we put on our site, if you really want to comment on it, you can share it to your page, you can put it there, and you can comment any way you'd like on your page. This is not a page where you just get to say whatever you want, or anyone. That's not what this is about.
And you're aware that the shares show on your page?
Yes.
And you're aware of the profanity and the
We
violations.
cannot
of
control,
shares.
the way Facebook works is we cannot control what someone does once it goes past our site. We can't control profanity if they want to post things on your page. We can't, that's something you have to deal with. That's your responsibility as a Facebook user.
That is right. I think that if you set it up this way, that what I was reading, a reasonable, not an effort to block or to suppress expression, merely because what the public officials you don't want us to say is being removed. And I'm afraid that some of that is in this. The part on the bottom after number 10 that says, this comment policy is subject to amendment or modification at any time. Repeated violations of the City of Oak Creek social media comment policy may result in the offender being blocked from use. And that's a violation.
No, we've set up rules. You have to follow the rules.
Well,
Let me give you an example.
This is a social media.
Let me give you an example. If you come up here as part of this discussion we're having, and you're talking about items that are off topic, or you start using profanity, or you start personally attacking one person up here, I will take away your ability to speak on that microphone.
You have that right under state law.
And I believe we have that right also in our social media policy. That's why we're trying to do our best to spell it out. Nothing is perfect here, but we're trying to be forward-thinking and laying out a consistent, clear understanding for everyone that is involved with the site that this is how it should be used.
I think you're laying us open to a lawsuit under a violation of our rights to.
You're certainly allowed to that opinion.
Well, I think that there's plenty of information out there on the media sites. This is a social media site. It cannot be that controlled as to, I mean, there are certain things that you can do. Profanity is one thing. But if I want to make a comment that isn't exactly pleasing to any of you, that's too bad. That's too bad. You don't have a right to remove that. Then you're violating my rights to free speech.
I would tell you to review the policy. And if you feel that someone has taken away a right, then you can certainly appeal to our process, this process, these gentlemen up here.
Well, I think you're
and we'll
laying
look
us
at it.
open to a lawsuit.
That's your.
I also, yes, it's my opinion. And when it hits the city, then fine. Where is the part here where we can introduce a topic?
You can introduce a topic on your Facebook page. As a city entity, actually any business or community that creates their own Facebook page, they can control the dialogue that happens on their site.
So we have to listen to you talk about Green Bay Packers and things like that.
I think that's
That's
one
your
post
choice.
we've had in a year. Go ahead, Jerry.
We think this is kind of an important issue. If there was anything goes in terms of what the comments are, why even have a site? This site is to communicate the issues that we think are important, that we want community input on, and we can control the questions that are being discussed there. Otherwise, it's just free-for-all.
It's chaos.
It's chaos. So those are things that we want input, we want discussion on, and certainly those of us who are in government are very much about free speech. We want to be able to have those activities and have that input, but we also want to make sure that we have input on subjects that we've been able to identify. People want to have discussions outside of that. They can have their own Facebook page. They can have their own discussions. That's certainly possible, but it's not a free-for-all on our site.
Well, what about
We think
citizens?
that's really an important part of this discussion.
What about citizens group that are having meetings that would like to put something on the site? It's important to the residents of the city. You make announcements on the site about the library and events at the library.
That's a city function is the library.
Well, it's a city function, but if Oak Creek Citizens Action is going to have a meeting,
So you're right here representing Oak Creek Citizens Action?
no, I don't belong to Oak Creek Citizens Action.
Why did you mention them?
It was a common group here in the city.
Let me put it to you this way. If Oak Creek Citizens Action has a post that they would like to see on the site, we'll consider it.
And how would they do that?
Send it into Leslie or city administrator, and we'll consider it.
Okay, and we have no rules governing, it's going to be totally discretionary and up to Leslie.
It's actually reviewed by staff. No, it's more than one person, but
Okay, and then number 5, Comments that support or oppose political campaigns or ballot measures. Why is that on there? We vote. It's a function. It's a city function.
Yeah, just let me go back. I just want to go back on your previous question. Item 5 says, comments that support or oppose political campaigns or ballot measures cannot be posted on our site.
Why not? We vote.
Let me let the city attorney speak to that one.
That's not the purpose of the site, and that language in particular, it's really a bad time to use this as an example, but one of the social media policies we looked at was the city of Seattle, and that particular, a lot of these concepts were garnered from their social media policy, and this is not for political campaign purposes or an item that's the subject of a referendum or whatever. That's not the purpose of this. If somebody wants to express their political views, they have the perfect right to do that. And the one thing that was discussed is whether or not to open it up to just whatever citizens wanted to comment on, and the decision was clearly made, and it's clearly legally supportable that the comments are going to be restricted to whatever the post is.
I agree with that.
All right, so beyond that, you said you thought this violates your free speech rights. There is nothing, and I challenge you to tell this council, there is nothing in this that says that you can't criticize a particular decision or particular project or whatever. If there was a post made tomorrow that the Common Council has decided to restrict access to the two properties, DuPont and Epic, there's nothing in this policy that would prevent you from going on the site and saying, I disagree with that policy, and here are my reasons.
I would argue that, go ahead.
And if you could point to something in this policy that prevents that from happening, I'd love to hear it.
I would argue that if I went on our Facebook page right now, I would find probably 10 comments from you that were negative to something that was posted right now. So
Such as?
For example, I saw a post Saturday that went out on cross-cultural resources for our community, and you said, I think the words you used were, why is this necessary? Is this tied to the Sikh shooting? Why do we need this? And I would argue, to you that the reason we need it is because there are groups in our city that have either asked for those resources, or the federal or state government has said, these are things you should provide in your community that's growing more diverse every day.
Well, the point is that she had the opportunity to
And we left it
disagree
on.
with
And it's
or
on
criticize it.
Yeah, you have that option. You just have
Well,
to
I
follow the
didn't
rules.
think that we had a problem with cultural diversity in Oak Creek.
That's not the issue. The issue is that you had the right to be critical of that post. That's your free speech right. You exercised it. It doesn't violate this policy. And
All right.
you're saying that this policy violates your right to free speech. It does not.
Well, if you're going to censor it, and if you're going to take
we're not
things off,
censoring.
and you're going to block people from posting, yes, it will,
If you violate the policy repeatedly,
without warning. Without warning, it says here.
if you violate the policy repeatedly. So follow the guidelines of the policy, you won't have a problem.
I'll probably be the first one that you block.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'll be the one that starts the lawsuit.
We're not gonna prejudge anything. We're gonna deal with each and every issue as it arises.
We'll pass your resolution and see how far it goes.
Thank you for your comments. Any other questions or comments from the council? Alderman Gale.
Sorry, Mayor, I look at this, this ordinance and this policy as, an evolutionary kind of process. This will, be teased out and argued out and through the various iterations and other court hearings as we move through time, and we'll obviously find some common ground. And obviously, the key to this is to have it regularly reviewed and have a process that we can go through to make sure we address any grievances. But government and Facebook are kind of a quirky relationship to begin with, so we're all going to be going through a learning process. Your government has an obligation to provide a forum of free speech, and Facebook has its own little quirky little nuances that sometimes get in the way of that. So we live and we learn, we move on, and as long as we can adapt, I'm fine. We have a starting point, and we'll move forward from here.
And I always like to say about Facebook, there's nothing wrong with talking about good news that happens in a city. I think this is a good forum for it. And overwhelmingly, we've gotten great support from the residents and people that use the site.
think that Facebook also can be used to report things that the residents aren't aware of that are not good news in this city. All right? If I want to get on the Facebook page and I want to say that I am not in support of developer incentives to come to Oak Creek, that I don't support $5 million to bring a hospital, $1.4 million to bring, everything that you brought to Drexel Square has been developer incentives.
It's not true.
Which one?
Meyer.
Meyer got 1.4, I thought.
Here didn't get a dime.
0.
See, that's the problem.
That's not, now we're getting off.
The things you just
track
said,
here.
the things you just said, I want to be able to, all those comments you just said are actually still on the site on other posts that you've commented on. So none of that stuff's been removed. It's still there.
Okay.
So
So then if I come out and I say that Meyer got 1.4 million.
be incorrect.
And it's wrong, then correct me. Don't take my posting off.
Why don't you get your facts right to begin with?
Yeah,
And concentrate on
that's a
little
good
bit of that.
start.
Well, the rest of them were right. I was wrong on one.
The biggest one.
1.4, the biggest one is 5 million for the hospital, wasn't it?
We're not talking about incentives here.
Okay.
Forget it.
Let's, how's everybody doing on this? Good conversation?
Let's move
I
on.
think we've understood it.
Yep.
I think it's a good step forward. Clear policy, play with the rules, play within the rules. Everybody gets along. As I always say, there's nothing wrong with getting along. All right, motion.
Gail will move to approve resolution number 11590-012015, a resolution regarding the City of Oak Creek's social media user responsibilities policy.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Ritz.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Item 13 is a consideration of ordinance number 2749, amending section 2 of ordinance number 2743, relating to the salary for the position of Assistant Director of Streets, Parks, and Forestry. Jerry?
I think we've ran out of batteries.
Can hear you, Jerry.
We can hear you.
That was good.
Yeah.
Earlier tonight, the Personnel Committee authorized us to seek applications for the Assistant Director of Streets, Parks, and Forestry. Previously, we had not established the salary range. What you have in front of you is the ordinance that would establish the salary range for that position. It is unchanged from where it is now. Earlier, you talked about the retirement of Dave Lane. This is filling that position. The actual salary won't come back to you by previous administrative policy. We generally try to hire at the beginning of the range. If we have a very qualified person, we can hire up to mid-range. That's our policy. So this is just to put that range in the city salary ordinance for 2015.
Questions? Alderman Guzekowski.
Jerry, will we be looking to hire from within on something like this, or?
Yeah, the process that the city has is we need to post these for 5 days internally, and we have broad disbursement of that posting. We send it to the utility, we send it to the library, and maybe a librarian wants to do something else, so that we get that. Those applications come in. Ted reviews those applications and determines whether we have a satisfactory candidate internally. If we do, we hire, and it's a relatively short process. If we don't, we seek additional applications out there. So I don't know what Ted's intending to do. Maybe he can talk to that.
Ted?
Yeah, that's correct. We really won't know. We do know there's a couple of people internally that are interested in the position. So once we post it, we'll see who applies for the job, and we certainly will give consideration to internal candidates.
Questions? Motion.
Toman will make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2749, amending section 2 of ordinance number 2743, relating to the salary for the position of Assistant Director of Streets, Parks, and Forestry.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Item 14 is a motion to authorize the Finance Department to purchase the citizens' request for action module for our current BSNA software, creating a web portal for citizens to place and track work requests. Ted?
Yeah, okay. Actually, I'll give you a little background on it. We had a capital project that was looking into doing a work order system for the Public Works area. We reviewed quite a bit of companies and software, and we actually invited 6 companies to come in and to present to a group of, yeah, there was probably about 20 city employees, ranging anywhere from, well, Jerry to myself to some of the clerks from here at City Hall. So we had a pretty diverse group of people that were going to be using the software. We elected or decided to go with the work order system that's in our BSA software. It's something that we were already going to use through Weed Commissioner and some of the other functions. So the people would have to be trained on it anyway. And it had a pretty decent work order system. So what this is doing is actually taking the money that we were going to use to buy a separate software system for work orders and using it to purchase the portal, the citizen portal, part for the software that we're already implementing. And this software will allow the citizens to go on the website, put in a request. They'll actually get an email response back to the request. Citizens will be able to track their work orders if they choose to do so. So it's actually just another component of the BSNA software that we have. One of the things that we think are real positive is we're all going to get trained on the BSNA software anyway, so there'll be no need for additional training on other software, and we won't have to integrate any new software into the system because this is already fully integrated into what we're using.
Okay. Bridget, you had a comment?
Pardon me?
Okay.
No, unfortunately, this doesn't pick up phones and remote devices. But actually, in our kind of search for the work order systems, we didn't find very many that did. Most of the companies that actually did allow citizens to use like a cell phone or something like that to send something in, we're using like a third-party person, which actually, if we feel the need to do that down the line, we can always do that. And we've got a couple of names of different companies from some of the other work order software companies that who are using these third-party people. The one comment that I thought was kind of interesting on that, though, was a lot of the municipalities that have done that have seen a number of people use it, and then it kind of stops. They kind of, you know, the luster kind of wears off of it. But we certainly can go that direction if we feel that we need to in the future.
Okay. Bridget?
Oops.
The really neat thing with the CRA, the Citizen Request for Action, is that, am I on?
No, it is.
Stereo.
No, I'm not.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the concept is that that it directly filtrates into your work order. So right now, they can go through the Access MyGov on the city website. They can put in a request saying that there's a pothole. They are given a set of questions to answer about that pothole that the city designs in the system. What's the location? You know, can it do damage to your car? You know, those types of things. Do you want an email response? Yes, I do. Okay, what's your email? What's your location? They will get the email received. Yes, we got your work order request. Thank you. They will get an email when the work order is closed and the work is done, and going through that whole process. But where the CRA module filled a gap that we were trying to identify in our move to the new building is that this same module will also help the administrative group of individuals as they take phone calls. So they can take walk-in complaints and they can take phone calls, and they have those same prompts for those same types of questions, only they have the ability to see, okay, I've already received 3 phone calls on this pothole, now I'm getting a 4th. I can group all of those phone calls, and it only creates one work order for Ted's crews. So it just is very interactive that way. It's something that our citizens don't have right now. I think it's really going to ease some of the phone calls and some of those types of things that we're having going through the different departments. This also goes directly into our code enforcement modules, which are affected with community development. Same thing. I'm seeing cars that are in, somebody's yard. The grass is too high. The same type, all of these complaints can get logged and are now automatically in the system to be released to the appropriate parties. So we just kind of, as well as management reports, it's allowing us to have, more accurate what we're working on, how long is it taking, what are the locations, who's doing that work. It really is going to help change the world that we're currently working in.
Okay, Alderman Ritz.
I thought the citizens' action request was calling the alderman. 'Cause that's what it seems like sometimes. How many, what's that?
I said I don't think that'll end because.
No, I know. How many citizens' action requests do you have annually? Is there some measure on that?
Currently, we don't have this in place, but I mean, this would be, I wouldn't say it would take the place of people calling in, but it would serve actually 2 functions. One, if the person went on the website, they would actually create their own work order. But then actually if they called, it would kind of go through the same motion of going through the system. So, I mean, basically it would catch all of the calls and the emails. Currently, we've got calls coming in and they're filled out on tickets. And then people that email go to the city's website, and then they're just forwarded on. So right now, unless I went back through the books and counted them up, I wouldn't really have a real accurate count on it. This will allow us some really good reporting functions on it.
Let me just throw an example by, I'm trying to get a handle on it. So a citizen goes on the website and has a safety, let's say a traffic and safety issue. They're able to choose something like safety or as a topic, I'm guessing.
Let's say it was a stop sign. There's a stop sign request that they had that was related to safety. They'd be able to log into that, and that'd get assigned to Matt Sullivan. Would take a look at it. It would bring that request ultimately to traffic and safety. That citizen could follow that if they chose to, in terms of where it was in the process. We do a lot of things really well here at the city. This isn't one of them. We typically handle the work request very well, but we can't tell you how many we have. How many street lights did we have out? Everything we do is manual right now, so we're probably 10 to 15 years behind many municipalities in terms of this. So we can't quantify that. And one of the things I feel pretty strongly about is with the financial challenges that we have with the restricted assets, it's going to become increasingly more important that we get the performance stat out there. Well, how many of those are we doing? How often do we have those things? And we could get that for you, but it's a manual review of work tickets, and that's just not the way to work today. So this really allows more citizen input. We think that's really important. It allows them to track that information, and then we can quantify those things over the course of the year. So how many of the street light responses did we have? 2 different ways we can do this: citizen request and also work orders. So we can generate work orders internally for things that need to be done. We want to have our folks paying attention to that. We want to generate internal work orders so that we're paying attention to those things. Why wait for the citizens when we know it? We can generate that work order through the system, and then if we've missed those things, that the staff, or the citizens want us to take a look at, they have a ready way to do that. And there's some people who really love to do this. They wear the white hat, they're the self-appointed citizen person. They actually work pretty well. They alert us to these things and do that as kind of a community service and is appreciated. Generally, we hear communities have folks who do that. It's pretty well received. They help us identify those things that are out. Hey, did you know you had a light out at, wherever it was? Went out yesterday. Okay, no, we didn't today, but now we do.
All right. Any other questions? Nope. It sounds like a great idea. I mean, we're forward thinking. We should have done it a long time ago, but here we are. Other questions or comments?
Yep. I'm glad the pothole example came up. Ted, that would eliminate a lot of emails from me because I get phone calls and I generally send you an email because that's where so I'm assuming we could go in as the alderman saying we received a complaint or something about, great. Hey, once it's up and running, Mayor, put it out on Facebook.
Got it.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Just Ted and Jerry, important here is that we need to make sure we got the bandwidth, obviously, to make sure the input's accurate and timely and follow up. Make sure that as the aging process on these things go on, that someone's actually doing some managerial oversight. Make sure that feedback with the customer and the constituent is current, it's active, and someone's following it.
Yep, and there's really good ability to be able to do, but that's what makes it work. If they're stale, nobody follows up on them, it's no good. You're absolutely right.
Motion.
Gail will move to approve ordinance 2749 amending, Gail will move to authorize the Finance Department to purchase the Citizens Request for Action module for current BSNA software, creating a web portal for citizens to place and track work requests.
Kirkowski, second.
ahead.
I'm sorry.
Kirkowski, second. Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
15 is a motion to approve the license agreement with CSAC, Society of European Stage Authors and Composers, BMI Broadcast Music, Inc., and ASCAP for the rebroadcast of music by licensed performers.
This is basically something we do annually. It's to pay people who produce intellectual property in the form of music so that they get paid. It's a good thing.
Do we actually use this?
Oh, we do. Some of our recreation programs and elsewhere, we don't use it a lot, and they're relatively small costs, but they do this nationwide, and, I think it's a good thing, actually.
Okay. Any questions? Motion.
Gail will move to approve the license agreement with CSAC, BMI, and ASCAP for the rebroadcast of music by licensed performers.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Motion to approve the 2014 vendor summary report in the amount of $1,817,032.81 and 2015 vendor summary report in the amount of $417,306.09 for a combined total of $2,234,338.90. I'm assuming that's heavily influenced by the construction projects.
Hope so.
And, and insurance. I mean, this time of year, it's a lot of the annual payments that are coming through, whether it's property insurance, but we also have that 1.4 million for our CCI payment.
Other questions? Motion.
Gail will move to approve the 2014 vendor summary report in the amount of $1,817,032.81 and the 2015 vendor summary report in the amount of $417,306.09 for a combined total of $2,234,338.90.
Guzekowski.
Go ahead.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Under engineering, item 17 is a motion to approve a contract amendment with Alfred Benish and Company for an actual cost not to exceed $23,047.85 for additional design services for bridges on South Nicholson Road and West Marquette Avenue, project number 13022. In the first and third districts, that was $23,047.85. Just to be clear. I saw Mr. Degner getting up.
I got a little nervous when you said
It's a heck of a bridge.
Yeah. This is the continuing design of the Nicholson Road and the Marquette Avenue bridges that will be reconstructed over the course of the next 2 years. As the 60% road plans were into DOT central office, Bureau of Structures for review, they didn't like what they saw regarding the geotechnical report and the design of the foundations for the bridges. Working then with our consultant, Alfred Benish Associates, they had some correspondence with the state, and it was determined that some additional boring length could be taken to rectify that, to validate the design, I guess, of the footings, and so then the effort was to determine what was the effort and the associated costs with that. That's one item, and then the other item within the real estate investigation, it was determined that the east half of the Nicholson Road right-of-way had never officially been acquired. And so we needed them to prepare the plat and the legal descriptions for that. And that is currently with Milwaukee County for a March meeting in which they anticipate that being able to be approved. So we would officially have that right of way. So the total of the right of way acquisition is about $4,400. The additional subsurface investigation, $18,600 for a total of about $23,000.
Okay, questions?
Get it done.
Worthy project, motion?
Ritz will make a motion to approve Ritz will make a motion to approve the contract amendment with Alfred Benich and Company for an actual cost not to exceed $23,047.85 for additional design services for bridges on South Nicholson Road and West Marquette Avenue. Project number 13022.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Tolman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Item 18 is a consideration of resolution number 11589-012015, approving the state municipal agreement, SMA, with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, WISDOT, for a non-infrastructure transportation alternatives project, TAP, Safe Routes to School, SRTS, planning project in all districts. Mr. Degner, do you have a comment?
Yes, Mayor, this is something I've been following. In fact, the matter is, I am greatly in favor of this, having a school right across the road on Pennsylvania Avenue with, and as well as the West Middle School. We could go on with these schools that have been placed in areas where there are no sidewalks, there's no pedestrian safety. And what really bothers me, though, and as I understand it, is that you should somehow or another add the fact that we need safe routes to our high school. This Putes Road is a disaster. It has been ever since the 70s, when I ripped my trousers just walking along the side of the road. We still haven't got any safe route, except I think there's a strip along the side of the road now, but there's no sidewalks. So I trust that this will help to keep us safe. And I'll speak more about this later on, but we need safety with traffic accumulating over all these items that we are talking about. We have to have a safe route besides this expensive busing. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, you've been talking about sidewalks for the 6 years I've been around, so
Thank you.
keep it up. Alderman Ritz.
I've had a number of conversations with Mr. Degner on this subject, and when I was a neophyte alderman 2.5 years ago.
Neophyte.
Neophyte.
Jim raising the
Above my pay
IQ.
grade here.
I made the mistake of bringing this up as an issue and working on the Safe Routes to School program, and I nearly got lynched. So there are, to Mr. Degner's point, there are areas within the city that it probably makes sense, but we have to be cognizant of the various residential areas that and how they feel about it. So it's my understanding of this particular ordinance is that this would create that same review that we did last time.
Yes, this would be the, once this agreement is in place, then we would, seek RFPs for qualified engineering firms that would take us through this study. And, there's a whole host of things that we envision that they would be proposing we engage in, and it's seeking community input. It's likely working with the school district, neighborhood groups, and laying out a map. What makes sense. We've got lots of neighborhoods here. We've got a school here. We've got poor infrastructure for pedestrians and bikes from here to there. Okay, let's rate them, and go through the study like that. Real comprehensive look, citywide. So,
I know
and as these recommendations, become clear, communicate them, because you don't know what you're going to get for input.
Right. And one evening I think I took 12 or 13 calls on one area, and I had to admit to the individuals that I was talking to, I wouldn't necessarily want sidewalks in my subdivision. So I understand that point, and just want to make sure we're not doing
You did it the right way. You had one resident, and I know a resident because he lives right by me, who said he had an interest in sidewalks. So you took it to the next step, which is what you have to do. And then you got the collective opinion of 50, 60 years of a neighborhood that decidedly did not want a sidewalk, and then you made the right decision, I think.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Motion.
Okay, we'll move to approve resolution number 11589-012015, approving the state/municipal agreement with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation for a non-infrastructure transportation alternatives project, Safe Routes to Schools Planning Project.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Ritz.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
All right, home stretch. Item 19, consideration of resolution number 11586-012015, approving a certified survey map for the property at 7867 South Pennsylvania Avenue in the First District.
Thank you. This request is to approve a CSM to divide the roughly 2.5-acre parcel at 7867 South Pennsylvania Avenue into two lots. Lot 1 would remain with the existing house on the corner, but will not include additional development at this time. Lot 2 is planned to be developed as a community-based residential facility, but that is not the subject of today's request. It's merely considering the land division. Now, there are extensive wetlands on Lot 2 that do cross over to Lot 1, and according to the note on the CSM, these wetland boundaries were field staked by Sewer Pack in 2011. I only bring that up just as a note to the applicant that those delineations are good for a 5-year period, and should that 5-year period expire, they would need to come back with a more recent delineation. The CSM also depicts officially mapped street pattern on the east of both lots and the south side of Lot 1 for the ultimate expansion of the right-of-way for both Drexel Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue. This is important to note. There is dedication being proposed as part of that. However, as a result of that dedication, the improvements or the existing house does encroach upon that right-of-way, and there'd be a note placed upon the CSM that in the event that right-of-way improvements are required on South Pennsylvania Avenue, that the existing house would be required to be moved or removed, not making any specific reference to how that happens and under what circumstances, but just putting the owner on notice that the house doesn't encroach. The Plan Commission has reviewed this request, and they have recommended their approval, subject to the condition that any technical corrections be made prior to recording. The only thing that I would note that as I was reviewing this recently, just wanted to make sure that the proper language is in there regarding the Common Council's acceptance of this dedication, because I noticed some irregularities in the surveyor's language in the council's acceptance certificate. We just want to make sure that it doesn't get kicked back from the county.
For the, anyone watching, the closest cross street is Drexel?
Yes, Drexel in Pennsylvania, correct.
Mr. Degner?
Mr. Mayor Scafidi, I wonder if I could ask the attorney a question.
Certainly.
In regard to this note. Again, it said they'll have to, existing house will be required to be removed. Now, is there any way that we could have sidewalks installed? Because we, as we had this conversation previously, we know that these people are going to have to walk somewhere. And with Drexel Avenue just 100 and some feet away, is there any way that we could put that as a note on this certified survey map too, that the sidewalk should be considered required?
Well, if sidewalks are going to be required, I think it would be part of the development agreement for the development of the property
Well,
when that time comes.
That is second. Today, we're just
Right.
separating the properties, and we're stating what can be done with this property that in the future.
And it's actually, if I may, Mr. Degner, it's not, the reason why it's being stated in the staff report is just to make the council aware of what the applicant themselves have expressed as an interest in doing. The approval of CSM makes no representations regarding the potential approval of any CBRF at that location. It's entirely a different subject that actually there's been no application filed for any council approval of any conditional use permit that would allow for CBRF. I mean, and without going into too much detail, I mean, there are rules which require CBRFs or allow CBRFs of certain sizes in existing residential zones. So, I mean, they could certainly develop a CBRF in accordance with those policies, but that's not what's happening this evening. It's dividing the land off for that. If there were a proposal for a CBRF of a certain size, it would need to come back through this commission, the Plan Commission, and this council with the requisite public hearings.
Because there's existing now a sidewalk as Belmont Place, fortunately, was available to go across the street for the, and there's a sidewalk on that side of Pennsylvania Avenue. We're dealing now with the area on the other side of the street. And I think we should make it clear that sidewalks are expected on a dangerous road like that.
I think to your point, we will always make that consideration when that step in the process comes before us.
Well, that's what my point it would be. And is there any way it could be done?
It's not appropriate on the certified survey map to.
But there's a note that's appropriate, though.
That has to do with a house that is encroaching into the right of way. It's a whole different subject.
Well, this would be the same situation. wouldn't it?
We don't typically put improvements, anticipated improvements on the certified survey map. We understand you're concerned about sidewalks, and it will,
Okay,
it will be
thank you.
considered at that time. Just so you understand, this property is north of Drexel. It's not adjacent to the area you're talking about, near Belmont.
Well, I'm familiar with it.
Okay,
But
all right, okay.
Again, all this was brought up at the Plan Commission, and I haven't seen the minutes of the Plan Commission. But
I think you're concerned about sidewalks will be duly noted for the future conversation.
Thank you.
What's the time? Okay. Yes, sir.
Hi there, Brian Schoenleber, 5300 South 108 Hills Corners. I'm here on behalf of Joe Fredericks, who is the owner of this property.
Okay.
So currently, we're just looking for CSM, the divide off the duplex on about a half acre, and then we'll have another buildable lot, and then at that time, we'll deem what we're gonna do with that lot. Might be an 8-bed assisted living, we'll see. But there's quite a bit of space. We don't have it up on the screen, but there's quite a bit of space. We took down the existing dilapidated barn and created another buildable area.
When did you take that barn down?
Oh, in the middle of summer sometime.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was in pretty rough shape.
Yeah, okay. Any questions? Motion?
Kirkowski, excuse me, Kirkowski will make a motion to approve resolution number 11586-012015, approving a certified survey map for the property at 7867 South Pennsylvania Avenue.
Ritzel, second.
Roll call?
Alderman Tobin?
Aye.
Gale?
Aye.
Guzekowski?
Aye.
Kirkowski?
Aye.
Bekavich?
Aye.
Ritz?
Aye.
Thanks for being here. Sorry you had to wait so long.
Yeah, thank you.
Item 20 is a consideration of resolution number 11587-012015, approving a certified survey map for the properties at 3775 and 3785 East Elm Road.
Thank you. This certified survey map for these properties along Elm Road is a reconfiguration of the property boundaries. There are no new lots being created. Both lots, post-plan division, do meet the requirements of the zoning district. The Plan Commission has recommended their approval, again, with the conditions that any technical corrections be made prior to recording. Certainly be happy to go into more details if the council feels it is appropriate, but it's really a minor land division in that no new lots are being created.
Anyone need any more information?
Just one question.
One question, Alderman Tolman?
Yeah, I got a phone call on this from a neighbor, wondering, and I don't know if that person was at planning or not, but they were concerned about what the future, what the purpose of this, was that discussed at all at planning?
It was, and I mean, to the extent that, again, this is a land division that meets the requirements of the city's code. So that being said, the intended use is just that, it's an intended use. And the applicant at that point in time says just for consideration for his property to get more property back there for he and his family. I will note also that have been some inquiries made as to certain uses on the property at this point in time, which are separate from this land division process and are being investigated at this point as far as potential code violations.
Was there anything discussed about a zoning change for?
No.
There wasn't, okay. That's it, thank you.
Alderman Bekavich?
I was gonna speak to planning, but Doug took care of that.
Other questions? Motion?
Someone will make a motion to adopt resolution number 11587, approving a certified survey map for the properties at 3775 and 3785 East Elm Road.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call?
Alderman Gale?
Aye.
Guzekowski?
Aye.
Kirkowski?
Aye.
Bekavich?
Aye.
Ritz?
Aye.
Tolman?
Aye.
Licensing, item 21.
The License Committee did not meet prior to tonight's meeting, but tentative recommendations are being made as follows. Ritz will make a motion to grant an operator's license to the following individuals with a favorable background report received, sorry.
Gale, second.
Roll call?
Alderman Guzekowski?
Aye.
Kirkowski?
Aye.
Bekavich?
Aye.
Ritz?
Aye.
Tolman?
Aye.
Gale?
Aye.
Item 22.
Ritz will make a motion to grant a special event run walk permit to Cristo Moro, event coordinator for Balm Shelter on May 16th, 2015, and favorable department approvals were received on this.
Gale, second.
Roll call?
Alderman Kirkowski?
Aye.
Bekavich?
Aye.
Ritz?
Aye.
Tolman?
Aye.
Gale?
Aye.
Guzekowski?
Aye.
Item 21 is a motion to convene in the closed session immediately following the conclusion of the Common Council meeting pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 19.85(1)E, to consider memoranda of understanding with Cobalt Partners LLC for properties at 13th and Drexel adjoining I-94 and at Pennsylvania and College Avenues. Alderman Gale?
Gale will move to convene in the closed session immediately following the conclusion of the Common Council meeting pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 19.85 sub 1 sub E, to consider memoranda of understanding with Cobalt Partners LLC for the properties at 13th and Drexel adjoining I-94 and at Pennsylvania and College Avenues.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call?
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
At this time, we'll go into closed sessions. We'll turn off the cameras, and we will turn them back on when we come back
Gail
into
moves to
closed
reconvene in
session.
open session.
Kirkowski, second.
Kirkowski.
Kirkowski seconds, roll call.
Alderman Ritz.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
No action on 25, motion to adjourn.
Kirkowski will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Bekavich, roll call.
Alderman Tillman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next Tuesday.